Hi there, and thanks for joining me. Just a quite a short video today. You may say a single one, and that's precisely what it is. I just want to chat a little bit about this. The newest, the last, we can kind of hope that, Beatles single. I just want to talk about it a little bit because, well, it's interesting for many reasons. So this was released last week sometime, and I went out and bought it, and it cost an amazing £18, I think it was. I've got a clear one, as you can see, and I will say it's in a poly-lined inner sleeve. In an outer sleeve, which is kind of quite nice for a single, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if I've got any other singles that come so packaged. I will get onto other observations about the packaging in a bit though. So the first thing I really wanted to talk about is, what the heck is this? What is it exactly? Is it the Beatles' latest single? Is it the Beatles' last single? Is it the Beatles at all? And I'm sure loads of you who are real, avid Beatles fans will go out there and buy this and maybe get a kick of nostalgia, and that's cool and groovy. No argument with that. But first thing I would point out is it's not a Beatles single. I don't think it's a Beatles single. The story of this is that John Lennon, sometime in the mid-70s, wrote this song, Now and Then. Now, he didn't record it, presumably because he kind of felt it wasn't good enough to record. Anyone who's an artist or creative of any sort, not everything you do is a success. So, for starters, this was written, let's say for argument's sake, 5 years after the Beatles split up. Listening to it as a song, I think it's got more in common with Double Fantasy than his earlier work, than his earlier solo work. Double Fantasy, I think, was 1980. Now, reputedly, he recorded this demo, let's call it a demo. I like to think probably it was more like a, the artist's equivalent of a sketch on the back of an envelope. But he recorded it onto cassette on a ghetto blaster, basically. With just him and piano playing the melody and singing. So that's kind of what it was. And apparently there were 4 such songs that he'd written, which didn't subsequently go on and use. They didn't make it to Double Fantasy or preceding albums for that matter. But then after his death, Yoko handed this tape over to Paul, George and Ringo, and I guess they sat on it for several years, and then maybe had a little fiddle around with it. And I think it was mid-90s, so 95 or 96. I think 95 was the first Beatles anthology album, which kind of came out to accompany a TV sort of program, documentary, and or a mini series of documentaries. Anyway, there were 2 other songs on this. There were 3 other songs on this tape. Apparently, I don't know what the 4th one was. The first one was the first 2 were "Free as a Bird" and "Real Love," and I think the remaining Beatles at the time, so George, Paul and Ringo, took those and sort of reworked them a little bit and included them, certainly included "Free as a Bird" and "Real Love" on the anthology albums. And, they were, as I've explained earlier, I would consider those solo John Lennon songs, just as Paul's had a very successful solo career, George had, Ringo's done a bit, but not maybe quite as prolific. You know, you don't call those albums Beatles albums. But anyway, nevertheless, it's a John Lennon song, and it sounds like a John Lennon song. And it sounds like a John Lennon song of his sort of later work, I would say. You know, it's something he rejected that was then subsequently picked up. And when they did the Real Love and Free as a Bird back in the 90s, basically the remaining Beatles then rejected Now and Then, because it was, you know, it needed too much work. It was rubbish, let's say, unusable maybe is kinder. But then thanks to Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings fame and his kind of AI computer software that basically unmixes mixed audio, they were able to go in here and you know, with massive processing, sort of unpick the piano and vocal from that, you know, cassette that John recorded onto his Ghetto Blaster in 77, I believe. And then they went into the studio and put it back together, or you know, used the threads of you know, stuff that they worked on it back in the early 90s, and you know, basically put together and created a new song featuring elements of all four Beatles, certainly, but you know, it wasn't a Beatles song. I mean, you know, you could argue that you know, I mean, the Beatles, they didn't write the song as a you know, as a committee, but you know, in 77, John Lennon wasn't writing songs for the Beatles. The Beatles were dead and buried, you know, or certainly they were no longer performing, existing, and none of them were writing Beatles songs. They were writing solo material. Anyway, that's kind of what it's, you know, that really is what I think of it as, in a way. Now, the first time I experienced this was watching the video, which is highly entertaining. And as with this, they've used an awful lot of computer technology to sort of place old bits of video and you know, make a collage, if you like, a moving collage of the Beatles. And yeah, of course, it's great fun. It really, really, really is. And you know, thoroughly enjoyed it, but also thoroughly suspected that without the video it would be a bit flat, and that really prompted me to buy this just to hear it. I was intrigued, you know, my curiosity got the better of me. Now, this single was £18 for a single. Now I have timed it. Love Me Do, which is the B-side, is 2 minutes 23 seconds long, and Now and Then is 4 minutes 5 seconds long, so that's call it 6.5 minutes for £18. It's about £2.77 a minute. So this makes your Analog Productions UHQRs seem quite reasonably priced, I would suggest, especially when you consider all their packaging. Now, consider the packaging is another interesting thing here, because I don't quite know what the effect is. I'm not sure. I'll have to insert a photo of this, a close-up photo, if that doesn't come out. But there's kind of a texture here. It looks like cloth. But you know what? It just looks like a really, really bad, cheap scan. And yeah, there we go. So we get a nice polylined inner sleeve on a 7-inch single, which is extremely nice. But, you know, the cover artwork, I think, is just absolutely hopeless. I mean, shockingly bad, frankly. But you know, the rear cover, way better. You know, it's crisp, looks great. But the front cover is just shocking. Anyway, let's just talk a little bit about the music. So, without the video to accompany it, you put it on, and the first thing I just thought was just it's just got that kind. It just sounds a bit dirgy, you know. It's just sort of flat and slow and turgid and doesn't really go. And then John's vocal comes in, and it just sounds utterly awful, distorted and just bad, basically. The piano and the drums sound really nice. The strings are, I mean, they're obviously, I mean, this is the crazy thing. The strings are obviously modern recorded. So once you've done the stripping back with the, you know, Peter Jackson's AI, and you've got John's vocal and the original piano, presumably they replayed the piano part because the piano sounds, you know, really okay. Everything else is added on in the modern day, so to speak. So, you know, the bass guitar sounds okay, definitely. But the mid-range is just massively oversaturated. So the strings, which are new, sound awful. The drums sound good, as I mentioned. The bass is okay. The piano's okay. But it's just, the whole thing just sounds, you know, first of all, it doesn't sound like a Beatles song. Before playing this, me and my wife, we sat down and I thought, okay, let's just set the scene here of assuming this is the new Beatles song. Let's play kind of like the last Beatles song. So I got my copy of Abbey Road out, and we played Come Together and Here Comes the Sun. I think Come Together was one of the last singles. If you bear in mind, this was recorded after Let It Be. So the last singles during the Beatles' lifetime, so to speak, would have been off of Let It Be, but I think Come Together was about one of the last performed, recorded singles that they released. Anyway, you know, you put that on, you put Here Comes the Sun on. I mean, just every single line, every single element, you know, it's wide, it's expansive, it's captivating, it's expressive, it's you know, it's just on every level. You know, as a single, Come Together is mind-blowing. You know, we played Here Comes the Sun as well, just to increase the sort of the setting the scene of what preceded, so to speak, of what this allegedly follows. And in comparison, it's just dire. It's awful. And in that respect, I kind of think it's an insult to the Beatles. It really is kind of taking their name and shitting on it. It's terrible. And to charge £18 for 6.5 minutes of music, present it in a cover that's, you know, that good or not, so to speak, it just it's an odd thing. It's an odd thing. Anyway, so then we played Love Me Do, because that's the B-side, Love Me Do. So what they've done here is Love Me Do was the first Beatles single. Now and Then is the last Beatles single, let us say. So, you know, I'd say how we set the scene with Abbey Road. So I went back to Please Please Me, and these are my two copies of Please Please Me, which the covers are pretty knackered, to be perfectly honest. But one of them, which is my sort of regular playing copy, it's, you know, it's in very nice condition, even though it's you know, it's been played a long time. But we played this, and we just also had, I've also got one of these, which is, I mean, you know, you wouldn't believe how beaten up that looks, but it actually sounds fantastic. An original black and gold, Please Please Me. And you put on Love Me Do, and it's just, from the second the thing starts, it's just incredibly foot tapping. You know, literally from the first note. The drums utterly drive it. The bass kind of lays down the melody. Guitars are quite quiet, to be honest. And it's almost like the harmonica plays a dual lead with the vocal. But, you know, just an absolutely, literally from the first second, from the first note, infectious. You've got your foot tapping, you're absolutely driving with it. And then we put on the, where's it gone? We played that a couple of times, actually, just to sort of set that scene. And then we put on this new one. And immediately, I mean, the bass is really fat. Now the bass is very, very lean on the original, and you could you could definitely argue that you could mix the original maybe a little bit better. It would to sort of suit modern tastes. I mean, it would be nice to hear a little bit more of the guitars, but at the end of the day, the song is what the song is, and it's incredible foot tappy driving energy is the thing that makes the song. Now, the new one, yep, the bass is fat, and it's lost its pace and urgency and driving kind of rhythm, and basically it's, I find it very hard to tap my foot to it, and that's that's kind of the remixing it's remixing. It's not just remastering; it's remixing that's going on with this. With basically Giles Martin and his Peter Jackson's amazingly clever computer software. I think the Beatles, thank God the Beatles back then didn't have computer software and weren't sort of geeks, and actually were just going on energy and vitality and the sense and the rhythm and that, just that acid etched passion. Yeah, well, in my opinion, it's interesting, but and I'm sure. Well, it's quite funny. I went back to sort of just double check on the price for this. From everywhere I can see, it's sold out. So maybe this is going to be quite collectible, but it's, I would say it's collectible for completists only. Yeah, I've heard it. And that's it. But I think it is an interesting thing about the power of videos and use of videos in music. And I say that because when when I looked at this the first time with the video, obviously, it was really interesting. And I think it was, as I said to my wife at the time, it's like just, I think without this video, you wouldn't turn your head to hear this song. I think it's particularly unexceptional, and it works in both ways because just at the weekend, basically knowing that, I'm a massive fan of Peter Gabriel. Anyone that knows the channel will know. And Peter's new album is coming out, I believe, on the 1st of December, and he's been releasing a track every new moon and every full moon, I think it is, the dark side mix and the bright side mix of the same song. So two different mixes each month. And each one he's kind of collaborated with an artist, and they've done some, really quite clever artsy video. Now, I've sort of looked at all of these and just been a bit lukewarm about them, to be honest. But with the album sort of launch coming soon, I thought, I've got to actually listen to this as an album. So I sort of downloaded them all in Cubase and arranged them in the right order. I actually did this with the dark side mixes, and sat down and listened to the album as is, with so far 11 tracks, in order, one after the other, without videos. And I really got it. It's just, it was really fulfilling, satisfying, deep, thought-provoking music. And it made me think, the same thing about the power of the video. And the video can be used to punt complete, rubbish. I'm not, it can be used to, videos can be used to sell rubbish, and videos in pop music, as the years have gone by, it's, I suspect it's more important, how pretty you look on camera, than how good a musician you are, as to whether you're going to make it in the pop world, certainly. And, but it can also get in the way because you're having your imagination kind of corralled into a predetermined space which doesn't give you that, it doesn't give you the expansive sort of potential when you're listening to something, as is the case with this Gabriel. I mean, I massively love prog music, and part of the reason is because it allows your mind to sort of, it throws a lot of sort of questions without necessarily giving you a very rigidly described answer, and you can kind of use your imagination to make your own landscapes or worlds or narratives, and I think that's really important. Certainly that's part of my appreciation of music and why I love music so much more than video, frankly. But anyway, there we are, Beatles Now and Then. I won't say £18 well spent. The CD single, I believe, is £5, so that's a lot more reasonable. But at the end of the day, I kind of think, calling this the latest Beatles single, calling the fact that all these remixed albums, they've just done the Red and the Blue compilation albums, but have done the latter period albums from Revolver forwards. And I commented on my Revolver review. I just think they should say very obviously on the cover, this is a Beatles remix. It's not the original, because they aren't the original, and I don't think they're better than. And if they're not better than, but they're sold as kind of the original, they're not marked up for what they are. There we go. I think it would be really nice if we could just enjoy the Beatles for what they were, which is, if not one of the most successful, most enjoyable, most innovative, and most utterly fabulous pop groups, if you like, ever to walk this planet. And if we could enjoy their music as they recorded it, their original works of art as their original works of art, that would be really, really, really fantastic. Okay, thanks for joining me. I hope I didn't depress you or piss you off too much, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks a lot. Bye now. Bye-bye.